Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unraveling the psychology of workplace motivation and management. We are going to look at the invisible frameworks that dictate how we work, how we're led, and honestly, how we lead others. If you've ever wondered why some workplaces feel incredibly suffocating while others feel totally empowering, well, the answer usually lies in the underlying assumptions a manager makes about human nature.
So I want you to start by really asking yourself this. What fundamentally drives human beings at work? Are employees inherently lazy, needing constant supervision and pushing to get absolutely anything done? Or are they naturally self-motivated, eager to accept responsibility when they're actually given the chance? Your answer to that question essentially defines your entire management philosophy. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the management paradigm shift. 2, Theory X, Authoritarian control. 3, Theory Y, Participative empowerment. 4, comparing X and Y. And finally, 5, modern situational leadership.
Section 1, the management paradigm shift.
To truly understand where our modern ideas of workplace motivation come from, we have to recognize that organizational management wasn't always focused on human psychology. In fact, for a really long time, the human element was pretty much ignored. Back in the early 20th century, we had Frederick Taylor's scientific management. This was the post-industrial revolution era, all about mass production. Workers were basically viewed as extensions of machinery, just cogs in an assembly line where efficiency and task division were literally the only things that mattered. But as organizations got more complex, that mechanical view started to show its limits. That brings us to 1960, when a massive paradigm shift occurred toward a human-centered approach, a shift that is honestly more relevant than ever today in our era of agile and remote work. The architect of that 1960 shift was Douglas McGregor, a social psychologist and professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management. In his seminal book, The Human Side of Enterprise, McGregor made a simple but incredibly profound argument. He noticed that management practices, everything from how jobs are designed to how performance is evaluated, are always based on underlying assumptions about human nature, and he grouped these assumptions into two totally opposing categories.
Section 2, Theory X, Authoritarian control.
This represents the traditional and, frankly, highly pessimistic worldview of organizational behavior. Theory X is defined as a management philosophy that assumes employees inherently dislike work. Because of this inherent dislike, managers believe workers must be subjected to strict external control, coercion, and continuous direction just to achieve any organizational goals. This philosophy has direct roots in that early 20th century mass production mindset we talked about, where standardized tasks and relentless oversight were just the norm. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these specific assumptions naturally forge a highly autocratic management style. If a leader genuinely believes that humans inherently avoid work, lack ambition, and only care about security, well, they're going to build a system of centralized control. Authority is rarely delegated, decision-making stays locked at the top, the organization relies heavily on rigid rules, tight supervision, and the constant threat of punishment to ensure compliance.
McGregor challenged this directly. He pointed out the massive flaw in the traditional carrot-and-stick approach. The crucial point here is the narrative of the self-fulfilling prophecy. McGregor argued that employees often appear unmotivated not because they're naturally lazy, but because the organization actually treats them that way. Think about it. If a manager creates hyper-strict controls, the employee feels powerless and stops showing initiative. The manager then sees that lack of initiative and says, "Aha! Proof that my strict control was necessary all along." It becomes this vicious, incredibly demotivating cycle.
However, we do have to look at this impartially. Theory X is not completely obsolete, and it's certainly not inherently evil. Strict top-down control is actually highly effective and sometimes absolutely critical. Think about military command and control systems, crisis management situations like the very early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, or high-risk manufacturing environments. When safety, immediate compliance, and rapid, coordinated execution are paramount, the structured, directive approach of Theory X is exactly what's needed to prevent a total disaster.
Section 3, Theory Y, Participative empowerment. But what happens when the work isn't just about following orders? Here, we completely flip the script to a much warmer, far more optimistic worldview. Theory Y is defined as a management philosophy, assuming that the expenditure of physical and mental effort in work is as natural as play or rest. This view aligns perfectly with humanistic psychology. Think of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Theory Y posits that once basic security needs are met, people are driven by higher-level desires, like self-actualization. They're self-motivated, entirely capable of self-direction, and when given the right conditions, they're actually eager to accept responsibility.
Looking at the core assumptions of Theory Y, it paints a picture of immense, untapped human potential. It assumes that creativity and ingenuity are widely distributed across the population. They aren't just hoarded by top executives in the C-suite. Under these conditions, a manager's role completely changes. Instead of being a strict controller or a disciplinarian, the manager becomes a facilitator and a supporter. They decentralize authority, they enrich jobs to provide meaningful challenges, and they rely on trust rather than coercion.
Because of this, Theory Y absolutely thrives in modern, complex work environments. It's ideal for knowledge-based industries, technology sectors, research and development, and of course, today's remote work setups. In digital environments where continuous learning, decentralized decision-making, and rapid innovation are required, you simply cannot micromanage every single process. You have to trust your team. Theory Y provides the autonomy that fosters that absolutely crucial creativity.
Section 4. Comparing X and Y. Let's move to and see how this builds into a direct comparison.
So we have two very different lenses through which to view the workforce. When we methodically compare them side by side, the structural differences are pretty stark. In Theory X, communication is formal and strictly top-down. In Theory Y, it's open and two-way. For decision-making, Theory X is centralized right at the top of the hierarchy, while Theory Y decentralizes power, actively encouraging participative choices. And perhaps most importantly, motivation in Theory X is extrinsic, driven by external rewards or punishments. Theory Y, on the other hand, relies on intrinsic motivation, the internal satisfaction of achievement and personal growth.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world trade-offs of each model. Theory X ensures strict compliance and reduces errors in routine tasks, but it actively stifles creativity, lowers morale, and often leads to high employee turnover. Theory Y boosts innovation, teamwork, and overall job satisfaction, but it's not perfect. Providing too much autonomy without clear structure can lead to role ambiguity, where employees are just confused about what their responsibilities actually are. Furthermore, Theory Y requires a very high level of emotional intelligence and coaching skill from managers to execute properly.
Section 5. Modern Situational Leadership.
In the real world, the workplace is rarely a black and white binary. The most successful modern leaders don't strictly choose one theory and ignore the other, they synthesize them. Effective management requires adapting your leadership style to the specific context. If you're onboarding a brand new, completely untrained employee or managing a critical safety protocol, a structured Theory X approach might be necessary temporarily. But when you are asking that exact same team to brainstorm a new product or optimize a workflow, you absolutely must pivot to a Theory Y mindset to unlock their creative potential. It's about applying structure and accountability where it's needed, while fiercely empowering creativity wherever possible.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. Look around your workplace today. Really look at how decisions are made, how mistakes are handled, and how communication flows. Are you being managed by the assumptions of Theory X or the trust of Theory Y? And more importantly, when you are in a position of leadership, which assumptions are you projecting onto others? The way you answer that might just dictate the entire culture of your team.